Have you ever wanted to know how to make a luxury stuffed toy? Well, for a number of years, I've had that dream, and this is what we created in the studio. This guy is called Ladiv. This is made from my own fabric, which I designed. And in this video, I'm going to show you the process of how we made Ladiv in our South London studio. So the first part of the process was getting this beautiful rose gold cowhide, which from our other accessories, we've used this cowhide to make bags, belts. So we made it a running theme, and I decided to use it on this teddy bear. So obviously start off by cutting out the pattern pieces. In particular, I used the paws, and I think for the ears, and what else was it? We used the dog lead. So those were some small details that we wanted the rose gold to highlight. The thing with cutting leather is that you can obviously use scissors, or if you prefer, use like a rotary blade, whichever gives that neatest cut really. And then your snips, they're really important for matching up your different parts. One thing that's I think probably gets misunderstood is that when you're making something as small as like a teddy or a puppet or a stuffed toy, that you don't need to kind of pay attention to the details, but I guarantee you that the snips make it really, they're really paramount in terms of matching one part to another. I mean, in this section here, I think I'm probably cutting the inside of the ears, because there's certain details that I didn't want so obvious. I think with the ears, I decided quite late on that I wanted the rose gold part to be hidden, and then obviously once you lift up the ears, that's when you'll see the contrast. So I'm just marking there which side is going to be facing towards the back of the dog head. And as you probably noticed as well, I'm not cutting these pieces as a pair because the cowhide is quite thick. You don't really want to, unless you're really skilled at cutting leather, it's always better to cut the pieces individually, and that way you almost guarantee that you're being the most efficient with the fabric that you've been provided with. I think in total we used probably only like half a skin to do the stuffed dog. Cool. Great, so you can see the ears kind of coming together there. Great. I think in total we had about, it might have been about 12 pattern pieces that we created for this stuffed toy. But here I'm just cutting the main pattern pieces out on the body fabric. So this is my signature fabric, which I think we started using probably 2 years ago now. So I thought, why not add an accessory to the collection using the same fabric? One thing to probably bear in mind is if you're gonna stitch with thick fabrics, is use probably denim needle, a denim or leather needle, because you're going to need a really thick needle to punch through the fabric. And that's if you've got a regular straight stitch. If got a bit more money, then you can invest in a leather machine, and that's going to really make a difference that you'll see later on for the really chunky parts of the product. Cool. So I think that's either the side back that I'm just showing you there, and then that part that I'm getting to is the front chest. Obviously, you want to invest in a good pair of scissors. I mean, these scissors are Kai, and they're probably about 90 quid. But I've got these other scissors which I got from a colour called Wallace when I was probably doing my degree, and that was about, I think that was at least £150, and that was like 20 years ago. So God knows how much they are now. But you obviously want to get the right scissors for the right fabric. Yeah, just remember to really take your time when you're making these products, because the idea is you're making it as a one-off. These are gifted items. So every stage you want to be intentional about the love and the care you put into it, because it really shows in the end product. Things I remember when I was making this this dog, that I was thinking, oh, where would be the ideal place I would sell it? And I was thinking Hamleys would be perfect. So Hamleys, if you're listening, give us a shout. So that piece I just showed you there is the center front chest, and now I think this part we're working on the facial areas. Now, a lot of the pieces look really confusing, but obviously as we go through the process, you'll see how it came together. And also, one important thing to let you guys know is this was my first time making a stuffed toy. So the pattern itself, I created it, and then worked with my 2 members of staff to create the vision. So even though we knew what we were going for, we were very much shooting in the dark because we hadn't actually done something like this before. Cool, so that's just the snout that I'm just cutting there, and just making sure that the darts sit like how I'd want them to. So this is the first part that we're sewing. These are the ears. So we're obviously sewing the ears inside out. One side is leather, one side is my padded fabric. And that's galena there. Probably use like a 1 centimeter seam allowance and a big stitch on the flats, on the flat seam machine. one thing that you find when you're sewing two types of fabrics together is one fabric will obviously have a different characteristic than the other. So the way you're managing the fabric, you're probably pulling one and pushing the other to make sure that they meet at the same point. So because we're doing this for the first time, I hadn't realized the difficulty in terms of how thick the fabric was and then turning around certain parts. So this is the ear, as you can see, coming together. Really having to push through all the excess, and it's going to be a bit of a nightmare trying to create that point on the ear. Like normally on a more lightweight fabric, we do use fusing as well, but there's no fusing or interlining used on this. It's purely the padding and the cowhide. Cool. So with a bit of poking, managed to get that dog ear looking nice and pointed. And you can see that we've cut it on the right grain in terms of how the pattern sits. Also, we can't press this fabric. That's another really challenging thing to be aware of. So a lot of what we're doing, all of what we're doing is finger pressing and finger manipulation once we've sewn it to get the fabric sitting right. So this part is the dogtail, which the Galena's obviously having a bit difficulty with because it's such a small piece that we're trying to turn around the right way. And yeah, there we go, managed to get it poking out with a little bit of fabric rolling. We managed to get the tail sitting nice and proud. Great, and that is our tail. So we're just going to stuff that with a bit of filler. And it doesn't need much because we've already got the padding, but we just need to get a nice rounded shape so that when you press it, it bounces back. It's got some memory to it. Then we're going to stuff the ears. I think like with any other designer, there's projects that you just take on randomly that when you start it, you know you're going to have a lot of fun with it. And yeah, the ladies and I really enjoyed this project. So at this point, we're closing all the stuffing into each ear. So I think at this point, what is this? This is probably one of the sides of the faces actually. Just positioning the ears on, just to check the angle's correct and the ear is going to sit flat. So I think at this point we're getting to the thickest that these industrial lock stitches can do, because we've got about 8 layers of fabric that we're stitching there. So it's already getting to the stage where we're probably going to move over to the leather machine as it gets thicker, the more pieces that we're putting together. So this is where we're just doing a basting stitch onto the part of the dog face that each ear is going to be placed on. Good. Right, so this is the two backs, and we're positioning the tail where we've marked on the pattern slightly above the base of the coccyx of the dog. And
yeah.
this is more tricky than it looks actually, because like with the ears, you're stitching a huge pile of fabric together. I'm surprised that the needle didn't break at this point.
No. Maybe one hand.
I think this is where we're trying to figure out if the machines can actually take the thickness really. This point here is where we start sewing the little dog legs. They look like, I guess they look like tiny shoes. But we have to stitch the part where Glena's hand is, that curve. We stitch that first, and then we stitch the other side. So we've got this kind of tube thing going on. Yeah, it kind of looks like a Eskimo shoe at this point. What you probably can't see from this angle is that one of the sides of the shoe or the dog leg has got a slight concave shape to it, and that indicates which one is going to be the back and which one is going to be the inside. I seem to remember that the one that had the concave section at the top there was the indicator that was the outside of the leg. I think that's quite similar with setting sleeves as well. The back is always of the sleeve is always more protruding, and then the front sits inwards, and that allows the sleeve to hang and fall towards the body. Okay, looking good. So now this is where we need the leather machine. This is a cylinder arm walking foot machine. So this machine can do fabric like, I don't know, like 5 centimeters thick. It's an absolute beast. So I'm just testing the thread tension before we actually use it at this point. And I think we realized that the way we stitched on the tail, it didn't hold. So I had to do a holding stitch on the walking foot. And you have to be really careful with this machine because the pressure that the foot exerts, it really crushes the fabric. So you want to make sure your foot is nowhere near. Yeah, I mean, I'm being quite silly there because my fingers are really close to the foot. So one small slip and my fingernails are crushed really. So you really want to be careful. Done that holding stitch of the tail onto the back. And now I'm stitching the two back pieces together, because it's no good me jumping back on the normal lock stitch. Now for this part, it doesn't need to be a cylinder arm walking machine foot that you need. A regular walking machine foot will be fine. This machine helps us do a range of things, like sleeve openings, leg openings. It just makes it a bit more convenient. So here you can see the head coming together. We've turned it around, you can see the different details forming, which eventually we're going to stuff. Here is the main body, minus the sleeves and the legs. But our two main parts are coming together, and that's taken a lot of care and matching both parts so that we've got a balanced shape. It'd be nice if this part was standing up on its own, but I guess because of the weight of the fabric, it's drooping over. But yeah, really happy with how that's looking so far. And now this is where we jump back to the feet, and we're stitching the base of the paw, which is in the rose gold cowhide. And this is where you need the notches. Okay, so now our head is fully constructed. Cool, perfect. And that's our foot constructed. And now is the difficult part, matching those notches on the head of the leg to go with the to set into the body. So it's the same technique as a set and sleeve, sewing the legs in this part of the garment. So what I've done here is, this part is the head that we're sewing on. What you haven't seen on camera is that we've basted the head on to make sure the notches match. And because the fabric's so thick, we can't use pins. So we had to do 2 rows of basting stitches all the way around to make sure that it holds. And now we're putting it on the walking foot machine, because you can see that there's really, really thick parts which a normal lock stitch just wouldn't handle. So we're stitching the head to the body inside out, exactly like a set and sleeve, but the only difference is with a set and sleeve there's ease. With this, the head has to be exact. And the really difficult parts at this point is where we've got the upper and the underseam matching. There's a huge chunk of fabric there. So we want to be able to sew through that join without shifting the join. I think anyone who's done sewing knows what I'm talking about. You've taken your time matching a seam join together, and then you stitch it and it's out of place. And I'm just using the screwdriver just to prod the fabric through, because at this point it's getting stuck a little bit under the foot of the walking foot. Just pushing it under, because sometimes the fabric gets stuck over the base of the foot, so it traps it. So I have to push the excess underneath the foot so it can easily feed through. Oh, there's a little bit of a jump there, but the thing is, next time we make this garment, there's certain areas of improvement that I already know that will change, just to make the maker process a bit easier, because it is as if this was to be made in a factory. I think the making time will be quite long, just because of some of the thickness in the fabric. Okay, so this part is very, very difficult, because the garment's pretty much made now. So we had to create an opening in the back spine of the dog, and then try and get the head first and then all the other pieces. But what you don't want to do is rip the opening anymore. Good. I mean, unlike making a lined garment, on the inner sleeve, you'll normally bag out the garment and then you stitch the line and close on machine. When you're making stuffed toys, you can't do that. So that opening that I'm pulling all the fabric through, that eventually is going to have to be hand sewn, which is a hell of a challenge. Cool, so we've got a very limp dog there. Now it's time to stuff. I think we used about 2 bags of stuff in there, which we wanted to give it weight, and we didn't want any part of the limbs or the structure to collapse, because we want the dog to sit perfectly upright. Now with each limb, you really want to start from the paw to make sure everything is stuffed, packed to the rafters. Because one thing that makes a difference between a luxury and like a regular schmegular kind of doll or regular schmegular stuffed toy is the weight of the stuffing. Also, one thing I did was I had to separate the stuffing individually when I took out the packet, and then I stuffed it in. I don't think it would have been good enough to just take it straight out of the bag and try and stuff it in the dog, because I think it might have created lumps, and you want to go for a smoother finish as possible. And by separating the wadding, you create space, but obviously you're punching it back into this tightly packed area, and that adds density without creating lumps. I think if, like, I went to Build-A-Bear once with a niece of mine, and they had this machine that pumps out the stuffing into the stuffed toy. I don't think that would. Maybe that might work here, but I think in terms of the body that I wanted to create, it maybe wouldn't have. So the manual stuffing would always be the better option. I think in total, it took me a good 40 minutes to stuff the dog to the way that I wanted to. I guess what you guys can't see in that Emile Vidal Carr bag, there's more stuff in there. So
EVC.
So after I've made sure all the limbs are properly stuffed, next it's working on the head. Obviously the ears have been done initially before we closed it, so we don't need to do that. But where the snout is, we had to really make sure all of that had the correct amount of wadding to it. Cool. Great, so that's the first time from stuffing it that we've been able to have the dog sit upright. Okay, so now I've packed all the stuffing in. This is how you close a stuffed dog. You have to hand sew it. And I'm using I think like a Gutermann 30 top stitch thread. And almost doing like a cross stitch. Just so that closure seam is really strong, because the last thing you want is for it to open at some point. You want it to be as strong as the seam that's stitched by the industrial machine. I guess this is probably the same kind of stitch you would do if someone had a wound, I imagine. Bit of an odd thought. One thing that makes this really difficult is because it's been stuffed so much, the stuffing is pushing out on you. So having to control the fabric as you're closing the dog, and then the fabric's pushing out, takes a lot of control. So that's our dog finished now. I'm just adding the finishing touches, which is the nose. So I wanted to go for rose gold buttons. Initially, I tried to spray paint them and it didn't come out right. And then I tried to do cover stitch. I tried to do a cover button. And because the leather is so thick, it doesn't work on a cover button. So I just had to settle for creating the cover buttons from the grey fabric. And it still looks pretty cute. Cool. So that's the nose sitting nice and proud there. Next, we are doing the eyes. I think the reason why I did the eyes last, because really and truly, I could have done the eyes and the nose before I'd stuffed the garment. Because, sorry, stuffed the dog, not the garment. I think because this was the first time we're making this concept, I wasn't quite sure yet on the placement. So I thought it's best to wait until the actual figure has finished, and then I can see what character the eyes are going to add to it. You know. Okay, so now just adding that final button or final eye. Cool. Yeah, looks cute. I'm certainly happy with that. So there it is, the making of Ladiv the dog. And I've called it Ladiv because it's my middle name, Vidal, spelled backwards. So let me know what you think in the comments of the process. Have a go yourself. Let me know how you guys have done. And then I look forward to seeing you on the next video.